I start with apologizing to Katja and Alexei and others who were at the Agile Eastern European Conference, because they already saw this talk. It will be totally boring for them, I assume. There are a few out there here in the audience who attended my class in the last 2 days. They saw half of it. That means that they will be bored to tears for half of that presentation. The other half will contain jokes about Canadians. So that will be new. And for the rest of you, well, I hope you'll plow your way through until the end. So my story starts in the 80s when I was 15 or 16 years old. I was heavily into disco dance music, and I wanted to start a newsletter about the music. And of course, this required advertisers. It was paper at that time. So I'd looked for advertisers, and nobody wanted to work with me. It was my first failed project. But I already had the other projects on my mind. At one time I tried to start a games development company. I traveled up and down to the UK several times to talk with publishers, and I assembled some people around me, developers and designers. And we nearly managed to get £1 million for financing of a game, but we didn't. And then that also failed. But I had the next idea already, so that went on and on. I started a company together with a friend of mine under an umbrella company. We converted WordPerfect macros to Word, because many businesses were migrating at that time, and they had these macros that they didn't know what to do about. So we had developers that could create fancy stuff in Microsoft Word and Access and Excel. This worked for a while. We had about 20 people working for us. But then the whole business collapsed, and again it failed. Then I had a very interesting website about games information, and it made me some money through sponsoring and advertising. That was the end of the 90s, at the start of the internet bubble. And I created a business plan that was so good that I was awarded the Entrepreneur of the Year in the Netherlands. That was quite nice. Of course, it failed. Well, we were successful at finding 1 million euros in terms of informal investors' money, and we were quite successful at spending all that money until the last euro, but we did not find any customers. So that failed as well. And this is basically the pattern for me for about 15 or even more years. Failure after failure. I tried my hand at being a cartoonist, and I failed. I tried to write a novel, and I failed. I have about 10 or 15 failed relationships behind me. And everything failed. So that is my story for about 15 years. But then I started writing a blog called NoOp.nl in January 2008. And for some reason that worked. A few months ago this list was published of the most popular Agile blogs in the world, ranked by Twitter followers and Google PageRank and stuff like that. Objective data they used. And number 1 is Martin Fowler, number 2 is Mike Cohn, and number 3, ta-da, yours truly. That's me, Jürgen Appelo. Nice to meet you. And I was so annoyed that 2 weeks ago Alistair Coburn, who was there, was not in the room when I pointed this out. But he was number 4 actually. So sorry about that. Anyways, this worked, and I have no idea why. I sometimes thought that perhaps I had already used up all the available failure that was available for me in the whole universe. It was inevitable that I had to succeed at some time. My blog should have failed tremendously, but there was some god out there who said, no, you cannot have that much failure. You will have nothing left for the Dutch government. So it succeeded. And then the next project also succeeded. That's my book, Management 3.0, about the role of the manager in Agile software development. And the next project is succeeding. I do classes based on the book, and they go pretty well. And I had an idea earlier this year to get people from all over Europe together, Agile and Lean practitioners, and to have them collaborate more. And it was just an idea, and I talked about it with a few people, and then everyone else started doing things, and they started organizing a conference, and we had a fantastic conference in Berlin a few weeks ago. And I did absolutely nothing. I just inspired a few people, and then things started to happen. So people ask me, how do you do that? I had a question a few weeks ago during the conference over lunch. Sven, the German guy, asked me, you've been a pathetic, miserable failure for 15 years. Well, it's not exactly how he said it, but I think that's how he meant it. And now the things you're doing, they all succeed. What did you do? And I don't know. Maybe I get the hang of it or something. But this seems to connect to the questions that I get during my courses. Because I ask people in my course, what are your main problems with Agile? And they come up with things like, how can I make the rest of the organization more agile? Or how can I motivate my employees to develop themselves more? Or how can I convince customers to accept Scrum? Etc., etc., etc. Every time it is the same question. How can I make other people change their behavior because I know what they should be doing, but they're not doing it? I have an idea and I want them to implement it. I have a book, I want them to read it. I have a blog, I want them to visit it. I have this conference, I want them to go to the conference. So it's all about changing other people's behavior. So how can I be successful at influencing other people to do what I want? That is what I researched half a year ago. And I have my conclusions here. How to change a social complex system. That is what this talk is about. No. I want to stop this right now. Yes, I admit I started it a few weeks ago at the Agile Eastern European Conference, but I want to prevent, I do not want to influence your behavior that way. That was not my intention. Well, anyways, too late, okay. Some of you know that I am very much into complexity theory. I like that, it is very inspiring for me. And I see, as others do, a software team as a complex adaptive system. It is a team, it is a system consisting of parts, the team and the people in them. And they adapt to a changing environment. That is typically how we see them. Like brains and the immune system and cities and beehives, and they're all complex adaptive systems. Now, there's lots of theories out there. Actually, there's no such thing as complexity theory. There's lots of theories, including game theory, chaos theory, general systems theory, very popular these days, social network theory. They're all theories dealing with systems that adapt and change to adapt to changing environments. And the collection of it is nowadays called complexity theory. Very interesting stuff. And one thing that I learned from that is to stop seeing managers as at the top of a hierarchy. No, I see them as either inside the system, they're trying to change it from the inside out, or I see them as part of the environment and they try to change the system from outside of the boundary, influencing how the system self-organizes. I think that's useful, and sometimes you can choose. Depending on your problem, do you see yourself as part of that system and are you trying to change it from the inside? Or do you see yourself as part of the environment and you try to change it from the outside? You can choose, but I find that a useful way to approach problems, and you will see how I do that with change management. It is described in, a part of it is described in the book, which is about the 6 views of management as I see it, and I have depicted it with a funny-looking management model called Marty the management model. Most of the management models are quite boring, with squares and circles and triangles and stuff. It is terribly boring. I think Marty the management model is much more fun. And improve everything is the last part of that model, and that includes change management, how to influence people's behavior. I steal lots of stuff. I just told Mary that I will steal some of her stuff from the contract keynote. These are the books where I stole the stuff in this presentation. Leading Change by Cotter, Influencer by Patterson, Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, and Fearless Change by Linda Rising. And I sort of discovered the 4 facets of social change. Let's see what they are. Now, first, consider the system. You have to realize that you're a systems thinker. You have to treat the system as, treat the group that you're trying to influence as a system that requires a continuous feedback cycle, and I will go into more detail later. Second, you have to understand that there are people inside that system and they have to change at the personal level. I will show you how. Third, there are relationships between the people. That means behavior spread as if they are viruses, and you have to see it like that. And fourth, it has a boundary around it, an environment. And you can often change a system by modifying and tweaking the boundary so that it self-organizes in a different direction. So those are 4 ways of dealing with it. I call my the model that I'm going to show you I'm calling Change Management 3.0, and it is according to the Mojito method. The Mojito method is making something amazing out of things that already exist. The ingredients were already there. I took them from various places. I mixed them, and now it's more amazing. That's my Mojito approach, the Mojito method to change management. First, consider the system. Well, surprise, surprise, there's a model for that. Plan, do, check, act. It's invented in 1939, I believe, by Schuhart, and then Deming picked it up. It says you have to continuously invest what is going on, and that happens in a never-ending cycle. So the first thing you do is come up with a goal. What is it that you try to achieve? And then, particularly important, find out where it is going well. Now this is the slide that you all have been waiting for, probably. Ta-da! No more Agile Manifesto slides, please. People are panicking. Okay, so yeah, the Agile Manifesto, and in 2001 that was a typical example of that. There were people getting together and they had this idea of changing the world by improving software development. And they saw how things were going well. And they copied that behavior. They wanted to copy that behavior across the world. So they came up with ideas how to do that. And I had that a few months ago, as I said, with the Agile Lean Europe network. I was in February in Germany at a conference. And it was in the south of Germany, very near the borders with France and Switzerland. But there was nobody from France and nobody from Switzerland. There were 4 people from Canada, for some strange reason. I keep running into people from Canada. No matter where I go, there are always Canadians there. It's true, there are 3 over there. There's a Canadian disguising as an American, Robin Diamond, and, well, Marion Tom Pumperdick. They are actually Americans, very, very up to the north, so I think they are Canadians on the wrong side of the border. Typical for Canadians, not to be in their own country. So I keep running into Canadians, but at least the Canadians were there, but people from other countries weren't. So we got together and we noticed when we were in the bar playing werewolf or having beers or whatever, or mojito if you're into that. We noticed that we had these crazy ideas. Let's start doing this, or let's start that project. And I thought, this is what I want to happen across Europe. I want them to get together and have a drink and start projects. So that was the kind of behavior I wanted to copy across the continent. And we did. We had the goal-setting exercise. We had a goal-setting exercise in Madrid, actually, with a number of people, and we created this Lego model. Goal-setting doesn't have to be in the form of mission statements, by the way. You can play with Lego. You can draw pictures. You can do whatever, as long as you have a shared idea of in which direction you want to go. I have no idea what the metaphors were here. There's a video about it. I'm pretty sure that the boat was for the Canadians over here. But all the rest, the elephant, etc., I have absolutely no idea. But you can watch the video to understand the metaphors there. And it worked. It really got people aligned and moving in the same direction. So that's the plan part. And then the do part, the second one. You have to understand what are the crucial steps. Define the simple, crucial steps that people have to make. Don't make it very complicated. Create do it in a very simple way, like the Agilists did with the task board. It is so easy, so simple. Just put a board up there, and on that side you have the things that you want to do, and on that side you have the things that are done, really done, and in the middle is anything in progress, right? Anyone can do that. That's an awesome idea. So like in this case, I have no idea where I got that picture from, but this is about a party apparently, because these are cakes and beers. So this is a person who wants to have a party, and well, if that person estimates at the start of the party how many cakes and beers they want to consume, and then have that all in front of them and start drinking and eating and drinking and eating and moving sticky notes to the other side, and then hopefully be ready at the end of the party, we call it Scrum. Right? There's another approach. There's another approach in which case you don't care about the estimates. You just say, I'm going to drink as fast as I can, but just one beer at a time. That's Kanban, right? That's Kanban. Anyways, that's a task board, a very, very simple step to make for people so they can adopt it easily. How did we do that with the Agile in Europe network? Well, as I said, we gathered at the XP conference in Madrid because it was organized anyway. And people were going there, so the only thing we had to do is tell people to go to room X at Tuesday night. Easy, anyone can do that. And then we started working together and come up with goals and plans and things like that. So the third part is check. Check how things are going. Do you get feedback, and how are you measuring stuff? I worked for a company where we created websites, and A/B testing was a very common way for us, for example, to figure out what things worked and which things didn't. So you show different features to different users, and you see what the results are. Either one or the other works better, and you could do A, B, C, D, E, F testing, whatever. It gives you feedback on what the system is, how the system is responding. I do that in my courses as well. I have what I call a feedback door, where people put sticky notes on them, because I thought, after doing courses for 1 or 2 times, I thought evaluations at the end of the course are too late. I want feedback during the course. I want it before lunch. I want to know how to do better after lunch. So I had this feedback door. It's also a happiness index, so the higher people put the sticky notes, the better. I usually make sure that the lowest ones are too low, so bending over is a lot of problems. So usually they end up at 4 or 5, because that's eye level, that's easy. Now, the last part of the PDCA cycle is act. You have to make sure that you do this cycle again and again. It never stops, as I said. Like, for example, the iPad is, I have read, about the 16th attempt at creating a tablet computer. And finally, Steve Jobs, who has passed away last day, I heard, he got it right. And I'm quite sure that he used the experience of all the others who tried it before and failed. So this was not the very first idea. They got it better. They did it 10 times better than the previous ones. But I'm sure they used that information. And I do the same when in my courses I have games. I iterate endlessly and try to improve on them all the time. And the earlier I got the feedback, the better. So, a social system is a complex and adaptive, and you have to keep poking it with ideas and see how it responds and changes. And I particularly like this quote by Donella Meadows. She's a systems thinker. She said, "We cannot control systems or figure them out, but we can dance with them." Right? You want the system to move in a certain direction, but it's not going in that direction, so you move with it, and then you try to block it and move in another direction. That is typically how you deal with change. And actually, Brian Merrick taught us how to do the tango at the XP conference in Madrid. That he had exactly the same message. So it's like dancing the tango with someone, and you try to move them in a certain direction, and sometimes they don't. And he made me dance with Lasse Koskela. It was very interesting. I'm very, very glad that Lasse is a Finnish guy, because I heard that Finnish people are very reserved and silent, so I had hoped he kept his mouth shut about it. Big mistake, of course. Because now in his Twitter profile it says, "I'm a tweep who once danced a tango with Jürgen Appelo." So the big takeaway of this session is never dance with someone from Finland. Can't trust them. Canadian. I haven't danced with Canadians yet. I might try. Tom, fancy a dance later? Just making fun. Okay. So you want the organization to be more agile. If you have questions like these for me, you want to change something, I have a few questions for you. Like, what is your goal? Or have you figured out where things are going well, and how do you want to copy those behaviors? And have you figured out what are the simple, crucial steps that people have to make? And how are you planning to get feedback and measure the results? Are you planning to accelerate all the time, again and again and again? Those are very important things to think about. Second part, consider the individuals. They're all people in there, and they have to change at the personal level, as I said. Well, it turns out there's a model for that as well. It's called ADKAR. It stands for Awareness, Desire, Knowledge, Ability, and Reinforcement. ADKAR model for personal change. The first part is the easiest. It's awareness. And usually it is the only one we focus on. Like we send to a whole organization an email message saying from next Monday, everyone will fill in their timesheets on time before the end of the day. Yeah, right. As if that's going to happen. No way. So that's addressing only the awareness level, but it is one part of the equation. So how are you going to communicate? Well, our government tries it with messages like these. They pretend that they want us to stop smoking. Of course, they don't really want us to, because they make a lot of money out of the taxes on cigarettes. But at least they pretend that they do care. So they have this message, smoking kills. This is awareness. Does it work? No. A lot more is needed than just creating awareness. I took this picture at the conference in Berlin a few weeks ago, where we organized open space. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but then everyone can suggest their own sessions. And I didn't really realize it, but when I stood there from about 5 meters distance, it's probably too far away from you, but I could make out that my session here was just about the only one that people could read. All the others had too small letters, or they had the wrong colors, so they were not readable, or bad handwriting, or whatever. And I think about that. I think about, okay, so they're going to stand in front of that wall and crawl all over each other's and peek over each other's shoulders, trying to figure out what sessions there are. And only mine will be readable. That is what I try to think about. So yes, I did have 40 people in my session, not because my session was so interesting, because the others, they were not readable at the board. So this is something that you have to practice. Communicate well. But as I said, it is the easiest part. Then we get to desire. How to address people's desires. You have to make it urgent and desirable for them to change. I was in Sao Paulo a few weeks ago in Brazil, and it was very interesting. I don't speak Portuguese, not a word. Obrigado, that's something like that, that's all. And I was sitting in a bar watching a soap opera, and because I didn't understand what was going on, I just looked at the images and I saw, the people were fighting, kissing, then fighting, a bit more kissing, and then they were fighting again. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. These TV producers know, they really understand what we like to watch. Just think of it. When is it interesting to watch the neighbors? It is either when they're fighting or when they're kissing. At no other times it is interesting to watch the neighbors. So this is innate intrinsic desire for us. That is what you try to aim for. So I researched it a little, and I found the book, the 16 Intrinsic Desires by Stephen Rice. I found Drive by Daniel Pink. I found the Self-Determination Handbook by Decky and Ryan. And this sort of led to this collection of intrinsic motivators for people. Curiosity, honor, acceptance, mastery, power, freedom, relatedness, order, goal, and status. I ordered them in such a way that I now have the acronym CHAMP frogs. I have absolutely no idea what CHAMP frogs are, but they sound cool. So CHAMP frogs are our innate desires, our built-in desires of human beings. I'll give you another example. These are toilets at Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands. This is a Dutch invention. There's a little fly here in the urinal. Just imagine that you're a man. It's maybe hard for some people here. And apparently the men were making too much of a mess at Schiphol Airport. So they came up with this image, this little image of a fly. And it works tremendously well. And why is that? Well, because this is about curiosity. Will I be able to flush away the fly? And as second, mastery. Can I hit it right between the eyes? And third, power. Goodbye to the world, little fly. That's at least 3 points at the CHAMP frog scale, right? So this is very well done. This is a good innovation. It has absolutely nothing to do with keeping the room clean, but that is the result. So that's brilliant. I heard, by the way, they're making customized versions of these urinals. They're shipping the ones to the United States with a miniature version of the Canadian flag. Sorry guys, just kidding. Okay, so next part, knowledge. We now have awareness and desire, but if people know that they want that there's a need for change and they want to change, there's desire to change, there's still some people don't know how. They need a bit of help. So Paul Goddard referred to the masters of in terms of martial arts that help people to be a great karate kid or whatever. We have these in the agile context as well. Gurus, coaches, mentors, trainers. The Scrum Alliance has this certification scheme that some people complain about. Well, whether or not this is good, the idea to have coaches and gurus is a good idea, right? You need to have coaches. That is what Lasse Sieger told you a few sessions earlier as well. Very, very important to coach people so that they understand how to change. The desire may be there, but they don't know what to do. Then the fourth part is ability. Maybe they know what to do, but things are holding them back. There are things around them that disturbing them, distracting them, whatever, and you need to help as well in that area. So you have to lower the threshold, make things as easy as possible. Like, for example, this, I think after the red button in the White House, this is the most dangerous button in the world. Buy now with one click. This is how Amazon makes it very, very, very easy to change your behavior and purchase something on their website. Very, very smart. So they changed the behavior there by addressing ability. Scrum does that pretty well because Scrum has only 3 roles, 5 practices or something like that. It is very easy to get started with Scrum. It's not easy to do it well, but it's very easy to get started. So they really addressed ability there. I think X-Spring programming has a bit more difficulty in their domain because there's this difficult stuff like test-driven development. The word itself is already too hard to pronounce. And pair programming, my God, do I have to sit with another person the whole day? Oh, this is also difficult. So this is not addressing people's ability. This is important, but it is much harder to do and to get started. And then last of all is reinforcement. So maybe people do change and they are successful at first, but sometimes they fall back into old habits. That happens. You know that probably just as well as I. I started running at least 10 times probably, and I still have not succeeded at keeping it up. Well, there's a solution for that. Some people do it like this. They hook up their Nike shoes to their smartphones and start running against each other over the internet. They add a social dimension or a competitive dimension there. That's smart. That's how they keep reinforcement up. So to make sure that this habit is sustained. I try to do that in my courses with the games that I have. I try to make them fun. People learn something, but the game should also be fun, and there should be colorful cards so that the people enjoy playing with them and start making photos of them, and things like that. And then they ask me, "Oh, can I have these cards? Can I take them away?" That's what people ask me. So this is reinforcing the behavior. So individuals, it's important individual area to understand that sending rational messages is not enough, right? Just telling people you should do something different starting tomorrow. Well, they're not going to do that if you just tell them. There's more is needed. So you have to treat them as the emotional beings that they are, and you have to help them a little along the way. That's what this model is about. And I particularly like this quote by Carrie Patterson. It says, "Discover a few vital behaviors and change those, and the problems, no matter what their size is, they topple like a house of cards." This is typically what can happen in a complex system, right? You tweak something here or you tweak something there, and then everything changes, as in a phase transition, as they call it in physics. The whole system then turns around. So you probably don't have to send lots of different behaviors their way. Just a few ones that change everything else for them. So he asked me these questions, like I want to ensure that developers educate themselves some more, or something like that. Well, then I have some questions for you. How are you communicating and setting the right example? And are you addressing their intrinsic desires? With a little fly or whatever, I have no idea. But think about that. And who will be teaching them? Which gurus are available? Which coaches? And what makes it available? What makes it easy? And what are the short-term wins in order to make it sustainable? These are difficult questions that you will have to ask yourself. Third part, consider the interactions. As I said, it is a virus. You're injecting a behavioral virus in the social network, and you want it to spread across the system. Well, surprise, surprise. There's a model for that too. As I said, this is the Mojito method. Everything already exists, right? So there's a model for that too. The adoption curve by Rogers. He said that innovations spread through a network as in a curve, where you have different kinds of people that adopt your behavior at different times. And for example, it starts with the initiators. They are the change agents themselves. Actually, this is not part of the model, but I added it because I think it is important. This is you, the change agent. The question here is, are you committed? Some people are not really committed to changing the world around them. They do not have enough time, or nobody is assisting them. Like this case, this guy, very famous person, he is not on his own. He has his team. He is trying to be a big, important change agent, but he has some help from colleagues. I had something similar, not as important, but for me very important. These were Vasco and Alex and Ken and Olaf. They were helping me when I was trying to influence Europe and get people together. So they gave me a shoulder to cry on when things were not succeeding, and we were celebrating our successes. That was a great help. And then the innovators. They are the people who are the first to adopt the behaviors. They are the ones who stand in line when they purchase an iPad. For hours they are there to be the first ones to have it. They are a special group. They get special attention from Apple, those people, because they are the ones booting up the whole change process for the whole system. And in my case, for example, the innovators might be the people who were there at my book launch, the first people who purchased the book. I did something special for them. I had to give them special treatment. But then it gets more interesting. Then we get to the early adopters. There can be some influential people among them. They won't stand in line for hours to get an iPad. They will get it after a week or two or whatever. But they are the hubs in the social network. Once you reach those, then they will transmit their messages to everyone around them. So you want to get them on your side. Like for book authors, these are the writers of blogs and magazines, for example. They have an audience. You want to reach those. And for the ALE network, there were people like JB and Lisa Crispin and Rachel Davies. They were agile gurus who were on our side and broadcasted like, this is a cool thing that they're doing in Europe. You should really go to that conference over there. And then the early majority. This is interesting because some people say that there's actually a chasm between the early adopters and the early majority. Many innovations, many new behaviors never reach the majority because they fall in the chasm and disappear. Because the majority is a very, very different group. There are different kinds of people. They need other treatment than the innovators and the early adopters. So in that feedback cycle, you have to try lots of different approaches to get them to adopt the new behaviors. And I tweeted a few times about how I see Kanban more or less trying to cross the chasm over the next few years. And sometimes I thought, they might have a problem there because the terminology in Kanban is so difficult, like value stream mapping and classes of service and whatever, work in progress limits. This I don't know if this appeals to the majority. But on the other hand, I was at a conference last week with David Anderson, and he was showing how Kanban worked in a way that I thought, this is typically what managers love to hear, the language that he used there. So this is something that you have to think about. And then, how do you deal with skeptics? The late majority. That's interesting. As a tribute to Steve Jobs, I have a picture here of him that I found last 2 years ago on a website. I was a skeptic. I'm still a skeptic. I still don't have the iPad. I have no idea why I should purchase it. I have a netbook and a Kindle and a smartphone. Why should I carry a fourth device around me? So people still have not convinced me. But you have to listen to the skeptics. And that is important. There's very crucial information there that they give you when they say, no, I don't believe this will work. Use that information and use it to your advantage. I had the same problem. People said, oh, this European network, it will never work. Or there's a hidden agenda. You're just trying to get customers across Europe. Sure, as if I need that. Sorry. Or you're being xenophobic. Well, it just meant that we had to learn from that. We had to learn about how we used our language. And then the laggards, the last part of the model, they are the people, they will never do what you want them to do. At least they don't want to. So that's a different group. And sometimes I hear people saying, as soon as you transformed an organization being agile, you have to get out of there. That was a literal comment I got 2 or 3 weeks ago. I thought, no, that's maybe too early, because then the laggards will grab their chance and they will undo all the work that you did. Then they will get their chance and destroy everything. So don't get out of there as soon as you can. You have to stick around for a while, perhaps, and make sure that the culture is really changed, instead of people just adopting the behaviors and then thinking that everything has gone well. So, about the interactions, behaviors are transmitted from person to person in the social network, and we have to treat them like the beneficial viruses that we want them to be. And a nice quote I picked up from a book by Rob Cross, The Hidden Power of Social Networks. He said, what distinguishes high performers in organizations are large and diversified personal networks. He said the personal networks of people are more important than the knowledge and experience they have in their brains, between their ears. That's interesting. That they found that from research. So this is a cue to recruiters and HR personnel. They should be asking people. They should be asking new job applicants. What are your personal networks? How are you connected to the rest of the Agile community, for example? What are you doing? Are you involved in open source projects, or are you following some celebrities or fellow developers online? Whatever. Instead of just asking, can you prove that you can write this piece of code? So that's interesting. So some people ask me, how can I make people use my services or purchase my product? Well, then I have some questions for you. How are you committed, and is somebody assisting you? Are you not on your own? And have you considered who are the innovators and early adopters? And do you have some influentials who can help you? And will you cross the chasm? Have you thought about the majority and the difference between the majority and the early adopters? And have you considered that the skeptics have useful information for you that you have to use to your advantage? And have you considered, if everything goes well, that you can stick around for a while? These are important questions to ask yourself. Last part, consider the environment. As I said, it is a self-organizing system, and Ilya Prigogine, he is a former Nobel Prize winner. He got his Nobel Prize in last century. One of his discoveries was that systems can only self-organize when there is a boundary around it. This is very interesting because that boundary gives us an opportunity to tweak how things are self-organizing. Well, it turns out there's a model for that too. It is actually called the 4 Eyes. I got that from a New Scientist article, researched by a Dutch guy. He called it the 4 Eyes, but I added 1 eye, infrastructure, because I think that's actually maybe separate, different. The first one is the eye of information. How do you make things visible? We are very good at that. In the Agile world, we are very good at using information radiators to change people's behavior. Just change the environment around them and they will act in different ways. So, for example, this is an information radiator. The speed limit is 25, you are going 48 right now. What are you going to do? Oops, oh, I'm sorry, was not my intention. Usually people slow down, most of them do. It changes their behavior. They're not aware that their behavior does not conform to what is necessary. And we had something similar on the website of the AL network. We had this nice map of Europe, and all the different countries were represented, and we could see who would be there from which country, and how many registrations there had been, and how many countries we had. And it was fun. It was fun to look at the map and see how it evolved. And people were trying to get friends from other countries because that country was not covered yet. So this was really helpful as an information radiator, even though it was online. Then the next one is the eye of identity. As I said, information, that we're quite good at that in the Agile world. But identity is a different one. This is a picture of a typical Dutch family. This is how the Dutch dress themselves when there's a World Cup to celebrate, or the Euro Cup, or at every 30th of April when we celebrate Queen's Day. We go around dressed in orange. Oh, look how funny we are. We are weird. That's being Dutch. And why are we doing this? Because we feel part of something more than ourselves. It is a higher identity, and then we change our behaviors because we love being associated with that higher identity. It is all around us, and then it changes what we are doing. So that works pretty well. I also found a picture of something similar, because we're not the only ones, of course. Other countries do that too. So I found a picture of a Canadian family. I could not find one from Lithuania, so be glad that I didn't. And I used that, or I should say, I abused that a little when we were growing the Agile in Europe network earlier this year. Because I sort of used the message, like, we have problems here in Europe. Like multiple languages, very diverse set of cultures, and we should stop listening or stop waiting for the Americans to solve our problems, because they are not experienced at those problems. And it is great to have half of the keynote speakers here in Europe to be Americans or Canadians. But we have some problems ourselves to solve. And this really motivated people. Yeah, Jürgen's right. We have our own problems. We should solve them, not the Americans. So, well, some said this was xenophobic, right? It was not boo against Americans. No, it was yay, Europe. We have our own problems. Yay, let's solve them. And that really worked. Because I really love this country. I really love the United States, even though they kicked me out of the country 3 months ago when I was trying to do a course there, because the Americans can come here without applying for a visa, but we cannot go the other way, so that's a bit unfair. But I love this country. I sometimes call it Canada Zero. It is like the improved version. It is the improved version of Canada. It has all the amazingness, the great taste of Canada, but without the intellectual burden of international savviness. So this is a great country. I really hope to be back there in in January. Anyways, so I used that tactic there to appeal to a higher identity, and it worked. At the conference, I was myself surprised when I got to the first floor, and people were making a sticky note version of our logo. At which other conference do you see people doing that? So it worked. And there are others doing that. I saw JB with his green bracelet, Clean Code, the Clean Code movement by Bob Martin. Does anybody have a green bracelet here? Anybody has? It hasn't reached Lithuania yet. Bob has some more evangelization to do there, I suppose. But anyways, it worked for some people. So they're sitting behind the keyboard and typing away. There's a deadline, and we have to ship this to the customer. They want it now. We don't have time for testing, so let's ship this crap. And then they see this bracelet and think, ooh, I'm a clean coder. I shouldn't be doing that. At least that's the intention behind the bracelet, I suppose. So that's identity that you can use. The third part is incentives. Dangerous area, but useful. Incentives is how we train animals. It is how we teach kids how to behave, with small rewards for good behavior. That's important. The rewards have to be very, very small. So you don't give them a lot of money for walking in the right direction. No, you give them a compliment, something like that. And you have to reward the behaviors and not the outcomes, because outcomes can be faked. As CEOs of big international companies know how to do that, make a profit by the end of the quarter. You can fake that. That's not that difficult. So incentives are useful. At the conference in Berlin, we had these appreciation cards. There were small cards, tokens of appreciation, where you could write something and give to someone else and say, I thought that talk of you was fantastic. Thank you for doing that. Or thank you for organizing this conference. That was really useful for me. So this is a small reward for good behavior. It works. And then infrastructure. As I said, I added this one because I want to treat it separately. This is changing the physical structure around people, like they do in my country with roundabouts. This changes people's behavior. At least it works in our country, because we pay a lot of money and lots of lessons we have to take in order to learn how to drive well, and we learn how to drive at a roundabout, and then this guides us in our behavior. Someone said that roundabouts in the United States do not work that well, but I thought, yeah, but that's in the United States they get the driver's license with a Happy Meal. Here we actually have to do something. So once you know how they work, it is very useful, and it guides people's behavior. They steer them in a certain direction. Another favorite example of mine is Schiphol Airport. I mentioned them earlier. They invest heavily in both information and infrastructure. You almost automatically end up at the right gate. So I try to do that myself. I have some. I try to find trainers for my courses, and I realized after a while that it was very difficult for them, because they had to send me an email, and then they sent them a term sheet, and then they had to say yes, I'm interested, and then send them a form to fill out, and they send it back. And thought, this is ridiculous. This is very complicated infrastructure here. So I made it very easy for them to fill out a form. Just one example. Last of all, institutions. They can be formal, but preferably informal institutions that are there to guide people's behavior, or steer them in the right direction. Like this is a picture of the guilds in Belgium from the market square in Brussels. The guilds were a typical example of self-organized institutes that said, if you want to practice this profession, then these are the rules that you will have to adhere to. Something similar in an organization could be a community of practice, right? If you're a tester, or if you want to do some architecture or whatever, we have a community for practice for that, and they will set some standards across multiple teams, some guidance, how to behave well. And on a meta level, we have something similar with the Agile Alliance and the Scrum Alliance and the Lean Consortium. They have some rules for the people and the companies that want to be members of these institutes. So the environment gives you an opportunity to change people's behavior, because behavior is a function of a person and his or her environment. So instead of changing a person, you change the environment and then influence their behavior. Now, a very, very important quote as one of the last ones. Culture changes only after you have successfully altered people's actions, and when the new behavior produces a group benefit for a period of time. But sometimes the question that I get is literally, how do I change our organizational culture? Well, you can't. You cannot change a culture. A changed culture is the outcome, the emergent result of everything else that you saw here for the last hour. If that works, and if it's sustainable and you've succeeded, you will have changed the organizational culture. That is the whole point of John Kotter in his book, Leading Change. So, you are organizing something, for example, Vidas might ask me, I want my friends or everyone will go to a conference. What do I do? Well, I have some questions for him. How do you make things visible? Are you using information radiators? And is there some group identity that you can appeal to? We're all Lithuanians. We have to be there at that conference. Can you apply some peer pressure? Can you incentivize good behavior? And which barriers will you remove and guides will you put in place to steer them in the right direction? And perhaps there are some institutes out there that can help you set some rules for people. So I sort of tongue-in-cheek, in a tongue-in-cheek way, I call this Change Management 3.0. It consists of 4 facets of change for the social system. Right? There's never-ending feedback cycles. The PDCA cycle that at some point we started calling Inspect and Adapt. I have no idea why. It's sort of half of the original PDCA cycle. Nowadays, there's the Lean Startup movement, very popular. It has 3 items out of the original PDCA cycle. So perhaps in 10 years' time, we will finally arrive back at the original PDCA cycle as it's been around for about, 70 or 80 years or something. Just a pet peeve there of mine. The ADKAR model for personal change, very, very useful. The environmental change that you have some suggestions for, and understand that this behavior spreads through the network as if it is a virus. Now, I have tried several things here, like for example, this is just awareness. You will understand that, I hope. So this talk is just addressing awareness, and I'm quite sure that this is not going to make you better change agents. More is needed. Like in my class, I make them play a game. And try to make sure that they feel the pain. They ask these questions of each other, and then they realize, my God, these are terrible, hard questions. I have never really thought about that. So I make them feel the problem there. And I also try to address knowledge and availability by having this PDF available. So if you go to this URL, management30.com, change management, you'll find this PDF, and all the questions that I referred to earlier are described there with explanations. And just ask them of yourself. When you want to change something around you in your organization, there's some difficult questions to ask. Like, for example, are you wondering how to have developers build Toyotas instead of Bentleys and Ladas? Or perhaps you want managers and customers to sign agile contracts? Or you want Scrum Masters to be servant leaders instead of secretaries or agile project managers? Or you want organizations to transform in a more agile way? Or you want to build relationships for outsourced projects in a smarter manner? These are good questions, and you should refer to the change management model that there is available. And then go ahead, change the world. Thank you for your attention.